Are we in a debt crisis or are we headed for one? We are in my opinion, we are at the beginning of a very classic late big cycle debt crisis.
Are you looking for a powerful solution to stay out of the economic crisis? Ray Dalio might have a solution to your problem, but what is the best outcome you can expect? In a recent CNBC interview, billionaire investor Ray Dalio showed his concern regarding the U.S. economy. The founder of Bridgewater Associates discussed the poor state of the American economy and hinted that there would be a debt crisis in the nation. He made these points a day after the Senate put forward a last-minute deal to prevent a full government shutdown by extending spending for the next 45 days. Imagine that you are the head of the nation and are the one who plans to take on debt. However, as an outcome of a recent debt, something weird happened. You found that the nation is struggling to pay off the debt within the period, and now it is on your side to make a decision. If you are in this stage, how are you going to take the next step? Will you be taking more debts to pay off the current debts? In September 2023, we saw that the U.S. national debt reached an all-time high and surpassed the all-time high value of $33 trillion. According to the data put forward by the U.S. Department of the Treasury, we can see that there has been an increase in debt levels in the past few months, especially after a 50% increase in federal spending between 2019 and 2021. Now, as the head of the nation, you have made a lot of new decisions that need to be implemented. However, the high level of debt is pulling you back from them. However, you might have moved forward with those decisions if you have heard of the real-life case of Michelle Jackson, who is the founder of a blog called Michelle is Money Hungry. What if we tell you that she is able to pay off her huge debt of over $60,000? Aren't you surprised? But how did she do that? Michelle Jackson understood the importance of financial resilience in 2001 when her mother lost her job as an airline employee due to the 9/11's terrorist attacks. While pursuing her doctoral studies in Boulder, Colorado, Jackson's mother called to inform her that she had been laid off and wanted to move into Jackson's studio apartment. For 3 years, Jackson was able to look after her mother through her hourly pay job at Starbucks. However, in order to make ends meet, she was forced to take credit and finally went into a credit trap. What would have happened next? Before moving on to that, let's see what Dalio has to say about the debt crisis. Ray Dalio stated in the interview that we're going to have a debt catastrophe in this country. Moody's Investor Service also said that they are losing faith in the U.S. economy. According to a report released by analysts led by William Foster, debt service payments would not be impacted and a short-lived shutdown would happen to disrupt the economy. However, it would underscore the weakness of U.S. institutional and governance strength relative to other AA-rated sovereigns. Now, Dalio explains how the economy can turn into a debt machine. He says that there will be 3 major cycles involved here: the long-term debt money economic cycle, the internal order disorder cycle, and the external order disorder cycle. According to Dalio, these levels can change as a result of interconnected cycles that feed off one another. Hence, it can lead to improvements and deteriorations in the circumstances within the big cycle. For instance, a perfect storm is created when significant internal and external conflicts over wealth, power, and ideals coexist with financial issues. Most people are surprised by these 3 cycles and their convergence since they have never seen them before. This is because each phase usually occurs once in a lifetime. Before going into detail about each cycle, let's go back to the case of Michelle Jackson. She said that she opened many credit card accounts and can't even remember how many. Jackson says to Select, "Like most others, my debt merely accumulated over time." How do you make ends meet when your hourly wage is $7? Jackson was finally overwhelmed by seeing the huge numbers and hence wanted to end the battle. Since then, she has paid off more than $60,000, leaving her debt-free with about $13,000 remaining, and she intends to finish paying it off by mid-fall. Jackson currently manages the Colorado Tourism Guide Square State, as well as the blog Michelle is Money Hungry. Moreover, she is an entrepreneur who trains others in financial literacy so they can become more profitable and acquire the knowledge she wishes she had when she was younger. In a Twitter post shared by Dalio, he talks about the universal mechanics of money and debt cycles. He wants to apply those principles to determine the outcome. He said 5 factors influence changes and are crucial to understand. They are the debt-money economic dynamic, the internal conflict dynamic, the external conflict dynamic, acts of nature, and human invention and technology development. Have you heard of the famous quote from the well-known investor Robert Kiyosaki? He said, "A financial crisis is a great time for professional investors, and it is a horrible time for average ones." In which category are you seeing yourself? Will you see a financial crisis as a period to invest more money, or will you blame the situation? Now, let's get back in detail about the different parts of the big cycle. The first is the long-term debt money economic cycle. The majority of nations, particularly the principal reserve currency nations, can be included in this stage, when debt levels and growth rates reach levels comparable to those of the 1930s. 1945s, the contraction phase takes place. They happen when debt liabilities and assets have increased to high levels in such a way that debtors are unable to pay their debts. This is due to unaffordable interest rates that creditors are willing to charge. If this is the case, the assets will be dumped either because of the high risk or since they do not yield high enough returns. Even though we have seen the case of Michelle Jackson, who paid off her debts, most of the business ended up in a pitfall due to huge credits. Hence, the central bank will be forced to print large amounts of money and purchase debt assets, which lowers the value of the money and causes the interest rates to rise further. Imagine you are having a huge amount of money since the banks are printing a lot of them. But what would that look like if that money is still not enough to meet your daily needs? Next comes the long-term internal order disorder cycle. Most countries in Western democracies like the United States are towards this cycle. The main causes of this are the greatest disparities in wealth, values, and politics since the 1930-1945 era. People in the US are highly concerned about knowing who gets what money and where it comes from, how schools should teach their students, how strict or lax the police should be when dealing with crime, and who should win elections. Furthermore, our politicians don't have any idea how to solve these problems in a sensible way that will please the majority of Americans. Are you a person who lives a life to show off? And have you ever bought a new luxury car just because your neighbor possesses one? Then you are one among the people who are contributing to this cycle. To add more problems, we can see that the media is everywhere with their eagle eyes. They can make a small issue a huge fire because they want themselves to be better in their profession. But do you know what is the outcome of this? Even good leaders who want real change to happen in society are resigning. Moreover, they are getting replaced by extremists, which makes the problem more complex. Elon Musk wrote on Twitter that the US debt is growing unsustainably. Even though it is a tough nut to crack, we can hope that the country will soon find a solution. Want to know the interesting part? Below Elon's post, we can see a comment stating that let's take more loans and give them to sensible wars. We can see that the public has even started mocking the situation. However, no actionable solutions were made. There we end our journey, where Ray Dalio takes us into the economic reset, the turbulence of chaos, and the looming shadow of debt. If you found value in today's discussion, please give this video a big thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.